you.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in with us on Markets Today. Well, let's run through the remaining of the headlines that we're tracking for you, which brings us to the fourth headline today. A whole host of diagnostic and hospital stocks were in focus. The government has released its national list of essential medicines for 2022. The drugs on the list can only be sold at prices that are set by the NPPA. Ekta Batra is with us to run us through the list and the impact it has on various pharma stocks. Ekta, explain this to us.
Well, yes, I'll start with the diagnostic stocks which were in focus. Credit Suisse wrote on the diagnostic space. They have said that the industry, in fact, is at the cusp of a perfect storm. They initiated with an underperform on Dr. Lal's with a target price of 1,400 rupees and resumed with an underperform on Metropolis with a target price of 1165. NLEM list for 2022 is out by the government, which is basically the national list of essential medicines. There are now a total of 384 drugs which are on this list. There were 34 drugs which were freshly added in 2022 and 26 which were deleted from the 2015 list. The drugs added are across antibiotics, anti-diabetics, antifungal, vaccines, etc. Impact will be dependent on which company's brand or type of formulation is going to be impacted with regards to price control. But remember that generally because of higher competition and the fear of getting into the NLEM, prices are generally low. JB Chemicals, however, was in focus because one of their molecules, the most successful one in the antacid category, is in fact removed from the NLEM list, which is ranitidine. They have around 41% share within that therapy. Lastly, Zydus received approval for Revlimid generic, the cancer drug. Remember the blockbuster cancer drug. They could probably launch, the timeline of launch is not known, but they could make around $300 million in terms of an upside estimate according to analysts. Lupin has received an approval from the Canadian market for one of their biosimilars.
Thanks a lot for that, Ekta. And Ashutosh Raghuvanshi, MD and CEO of Fortis Healthcare, spoke to CNBC-TV18 earlier today and said that they are in a position to go for massive expansion. They're also looking out to acquire some assets. He added that the Supreme Court judgment on IHH Healthcare's open offer for additional stake in Fortis is expected to come in this month. Let's hear about it.
Our metrics are very good and we are in a position to go for a massive expansion, and we would be looking at potential targets to acquire as well. We have the capacity to do further mergers, but we would go strategically. First, in the areas where we already have our presence, and then secondly, if there are any opportunities where a preformed cluster in an attractive location and at an attractive valuation is available. The hearing was actually completed last year, so we have been waiting anxiously, but we hear that the judgment is imminent at any time. Within this month is what we are hearing from our lawyers. So we are just keeping our fingers crossed that it should happen this week or the following week.
Moving on to the fifth and the final headline today. The Indian rupee gained close to around 40 paise against the dollar to hit its highest levels we've seen in over a month. The rupee remains just above the 79-odd mark against the greenback. The 10-year government bond yields that rallied in trade, and the yield eased a little bit despite a higher than expected inflation reading of around 7% in August. Lata joins us to run us through the money market snapshot. Lata?
Yes, the rupee was stronger by 0.5%, almost only 79 rupees to the dollar. At 0.5% higher, it is the best performing currency today in the Asian market. Other currencies are mostly flat, despite the dollar index falling a bit. Now, what is the reason for the rupee's outperformance? It's actually one-off. Dealers say that a large amount of dollars had flowed in some time back into the Indian market, and that was bought by banks. They had hedged that transaction, and now they had to square it off because it was maturing, and so they sold dollars both in the NDF market and in the spot market, and hence this flow of dollars and the fall in the price of the dollars. There are some guesses that maybe it was Holcim's payment that came in, in May, and that was hedged with the banks, and that is the contract that they are now squaring. But all this is hearsay. All we know is this is a one-off transaction. It is a forward transaction, and that was a large amount of money. There are other positive rupee factors like equity flows from FPIs have turned positive. There is an expectation that bond index inclusion will mean more dollar flows. These positives are there, and of course the dollar index is falling. But today's rally is clearly a one-off. We shouldn't expect such huge jumps in the Indian rupee as a matter of routine. The bond markets also did see some bit of positivity, despite the fact that the inflation number for August was higher than expected. This is because the bond market is less worried about inflation. They're only worried about the bond index inclusion. In any case, a lot of economists like from SBI and Citi are expecting the Reserve Bank to hike only by 25 or 35 basis points because of the dovish noises or dovish statements we got from some MPC members like Ashima Goyal.
Thanks a lot for that, Lata. Well, on that note, though, we'll wrap up on this edition of Markets Today. Thanks so much for watching.